The morning begins with a hush so complete that even the wind seems to be holding its breath. From above, the African rainforest stretches endlessly, a sea of green touched by the gold of dawn. Mist curls through the trees like ghosts of yesterday's rain. In the soft light, a mother rhino moves through the tall grass, her thick hide glistening with dew. Each step she takes leaves a small crater in the wet soil. Behind her waddles her calf, a small, wide-eyed creature named Kibbo. Still uncertain of the world, but full of its wonder, he tries to keep up. His tiny horn barely more than a bump, his legs too short for the pace. Every few steps, he pauses to sniff something new. The scent of flowers, the hum of a beetle, the sudden flick of a bird's wing. His mother pauses too, waiting patiently, her great ears twitching at every sound. For her, this path is routine. For Kibbo, it's an adventure. Above them, the jungle is alive. Monkeys chatter like children, leaping from branch to branch. A distant flock of hornbills takes flight, their heavy wings slicing through the mist. The air is warm, thick with the smell of damp earth and wildflowers. Far off, thunder grumbles, faint and lazy, like a giant turning in his sleep. Across a ridge draped in vines, another watcher stirs. A massive silverback gorilla named Bantu sits quietly in the shade, his dark fur gleaming with moisture. His troop, females and young ones, are scattered nearby, foraging for fruit. Bantu's gaze, however, is fixed beyond them, on the clearing where the rhinos graze. He has seen this pair many times before. He knows their shapes, their rhythms. He knows the mother's cautious patience and the calf's curious courage. He does not see them as enemies. To him, they are part of the same great pattern, creatures that come and go, feeding, watching, surviving. Sometimes their presence is comforting, a reminder that peace still exists in this wild corner of the forest. The jungle feels at ease. It hums with life, with balance. The air is thick with sounds that blend like a song: wings, hooves, breath, rain. But even in its beauty, the forest hides secrets that a faint metallic tang begins to drift on the wind, so subtle that it seems imaginary at first. The scent of iron, of oil, of something that doesn't belong. The rhino mother lifts her head. Her nostrils flare, her ears flick. Kibbo doesn't notice. He's busy pushing his nose into a cluster of ferns, startled when a frog leaps away. But the mother's instincts stir, old and ancient. She feels the air change, heavier now, uneasy. Bantu feels it too. His deep nostrils quiver. He rises slowly, massive chest expanding, and looks toward the forest floor. His dark eyes narrow. To most creatures, the smell means nothing. To him, it is memory. He remembers the time long ago when one of his young was caught in something cruel, a rope, a wire, left by humans who came and went like storms. The camera of the story shifts low to the ground, to where leaves hide scars in the earth. The soil has been disturbed. A patch of grass looks unnatural, pressed down, covered by loose branches that don't belong there. Beneath it, metal glints in the shadows, sharp, cold. Waiting.it is a snare, one of many. A poacher's trap set the night before, hidden among the beauty of the forest. The jungle doesn't cry out, but it senses. Birds quiet. The insects hum softer. The peace feels thinner now, as if stretched to breaking. Kibbo trots forward, stumbling through the wet grass. His mother follows close, her massive head sweeping side to side. She wants to lead him back to the safer edge near the river, away from the strange scent, but Kibbo stops suddenly and squeals. A butterfly lands on his horn. For a moment, everything is innocent again, the kind of small, perfect moment that defines the wild. Up on the ridge, Bantu watches and exhales a deep rumble that sounds like distant thunder. He taps his knuckles against the soil, not in warning, not in fear, but as if to remind the earth itself to stay awake. The light shifts as the sun climbs higher. Shadows retreat. The smell of metal grows stronger, drifting with the morning breeze. A family of monkeys passes overhead, shouting their usual morning arguments, but one stops suddenly, staring down at something below, something unseen by Kibbo's bright, curious eyes. The mother rhino snorts and begins to move again, but her pace is slower now, her steps cautious. Every few meters she pauses, scanning, listening. Her heartbeat thuds in her chest. a rhythm that echoes through her child. She can't name what she feels, but the jungle has gone quiet, and that silence is never a good sign. Far away, a human figure moves briefly between the trees, unseen by the animals. But there, a man's boot leaves a mark beside another metal glint. The poachers are not far, checking the traps they left in the night. The story camera lingers on their footprints, pressed deep, careless, foreign. They fade into the forest like ghosts, leaving behind only their scent and their danger. Banta shifts his weight and looks toward the lower clearing again. His troop has sensed his tension. The younger gorillas stop playing and sit close, their wide eyes reflecting the light. The silverback's instincts hum like a storm beneath his skin. He cannot yet know what will happen, but the forest's harmony, his harmony, has been disturbed. Below, Kibbo squeaks and chases a bird that hops teasingly just ahead of him. The mother grunts softly, calling him back. He returns, nuzzling against her thick leg. She lowers her head, brushing him gently with her horn, the way mothers do when they want their children to stay close. The wind stirs again. The faint buzz of a fly breaks the silence. Something metallic clinks, almost too softly to hear. The camera pans downward, past the rhino's great feet, to the hidden pit beneath the ferns, the one Kibbo's next step could find. And then, as if nature itself senses what's coming, the sky dims. The thunder that had been distant begins to roll closer, a low growl spreading through the forest. The mist thickens. Rain begins to fall in slow, heavy drops that hit the leaves like soft drum beats that eye in that moment. Just before the storm breaks, everything is suspended. The baby rhino lifts his head to the rain, blinking at the drops. His mother breathes deeply, the scent of oil stronger now than ever up on the ridge. Banta stands tall, his silver back glowing under the wet light. His eyes follow the small gray shapes below. He does not yet know that within hours, the baby's cry will shake the forest, and his own hands will do something no one could have imagined. For now, the world holds still. The jungle waits. The first flash of lightning splits the horizon, and the screen fades to black, the calm before the cry. The scream split through the forest like lightning, raw, piercing, impossible to ignore. Every creature froze. Birds burst from the trees in clouds of color. Monkeys leapt for higher branches, and a hush fell beneath the canopy. Somewhere below, a baby rhino's cry echoed again, softer this time, full of pain and confusion. Banta heard it before he saw anything. The sound vibrated in his chest, deep and aching. He rose from where he'd been sitting, nostrils flaring. The air was different now, sharp, heavy with fear and the metallic scent of blood. Around him, his troop fell silent, sensing his tension. A young female whimpered, clutching her infant close. Banta gave a low grunt, a signal to stay put, and began to move. The forest shifted around him as he ran. Leaves tore beneath his feet, vines whipped against his arms, and birds exploded into flight at his passing. He was not built for speed, but power, and each step of that power carried urgency. The cries grew louder as he neared the clearing, mingled now with the sound of earth breaking and something massive moving in panic. When he reached the edge of the glade, he stopped. What lay before him made even the great silverback hesitate. The mother rhino was thrashing wildly beside a hole torn into the ground, a pit camouflaged by branches and leaves. Inside it, her calf, Kibbo, struggled desperately. His small body was wedged between sharpened sticks, mud clinging to his legs. Every time he tried to climb, he slipped deeper, his squeals rising into sobs that cut through the air. The mother's roars were deafening, her horn gouging at the pit's edge. She tried to dig, but each strike made the soil collapse more. Her front legs trembled with exhaustion, her eyes wide with terror. She could smell her calf's blood, faint but unmistakable. And under that, the worst scent of all, humans. Banta lowered himself, watching from behind a curtain of vines. His heart thudded against his ribs. He had seen traps like this before. They belonged to poachers, the same kind who sometimes came for his kind too. They used ropes, pits, and snares. They took what they wanted and left the rest to rot. The mother bellowed again, her strength fading. The earth gave way under her massive weight, forcing her to retreat, trembling. Kibbo's cries weakened, each one more fragile than the last. Bantu's eyes darted across the scene, from the pit to the mother, from the mother to the trees. His instincts screamed for him to stay out. This wasn't his fight. Gorillas avoided the battles of other species. His job was to protect his own. And yet, the sound of the baby's cry pierced him again. It was the sound of innocence and pain. Something universal, something even he couldn't ignore, but he moved at first, slowly. One heavy step, then another, until the clearing opened around him. The mother rhino turned, startled, her body tensing as she faced the stranger. She snorted, head lowered, ready to defend her calf even now. Banta froze. The two giants stared at each other, one gray, one black, both breathing hard, both covered in the damp breath of the forest. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavier, turning the soil slick. Banta grunted low, a sound meant to calm, not challenge. The mother didn't charge. Her eyes flickered toward the pit, then back at him. It was as if she understood something, or maybe she was too tired to fight. Another cry came from below, weak and fading. That was all it took. The gorilla moved forward, chest rising, arms swinging low. He crouched near the edge of the pit, the smell of blood and rot filling his nose. Kibbo's eyes found him, wide, terrified, desperate. The sight made something inside Banta shift, something older than language that he reached down. His massive hands tore at the branches and vines covering the trap. The wood snapped beneath his strength. Clods of mud and roots flew aside. The baby's cries grew louder as light broke through. But Banta couldn't work fast enough. The pit was deep. The rain made everything slick. Behind him, the mother groaned, shifting her weight forward. She wanted to help but couldn't. Her front leg bled from where she'd slipped earlier. Still, she tried, using her horn to push loose soil closer, her breath loud and ragged. Then, through the storm and chaos, a new sound rose. Voices. Human voices. Banta froze. The poachers were coming back. He glanced toward the trees. The voices were faint but close. Two men, laughing, unaware of what was happening just ahead. He had seconds. He turned back to the pit and roared, a sound that shook the leaves themselves. It wasn't anger, it was urgency, raw and primal. With one last surge, he drove his fingers into the dirt, gripping a thick root and pulling. The ground split open wider. Kibbo's body shifted upward, his front legs scraping at the edge. Mud splashed against Bantu's chest. The silverback leaned in farther, hooking an arm under the calf's belly. His muscles bulged, veins straining under his skin. He grunted, pulling with everything he had. The baby squealed as the spikes tore free from his leg. A bright streak of blood mixing with the rainwater below. For a heartbeat, time stopped. Then, with a heave, Kibbo slid free. The baby collapsed on the ground, trembling, covered in blood and mud. His small chest rose and fell in frantic bursts. The mother stumbled forward, ignoring her pain, and pressed her face to his. A deep, relieved rumble escaped her chest. Banta stepped back, breathing heavily, his arms caked with mud. The sound of footsteps drew closer. The poachers were nearly at the clearing now. The mother turned her head toward the noise and snorted, protective again. Banta looked between them. The mother, the child, the danger closing in. For a brief moment, the three of them existed in perfect silence. Then, in one final act of defiance, Banta pounded his chest and let out a roar that cracked through the forest like thunder. The men stopped instantly, their laughter dying. A terrified shout followed, then the sound of retreating feet crashing through underbrush. The jungle swallowed them whole. The rain softened again, as if the forest itself was exhaling. Banta lowered his arms. The mother rhino turned back to her calf, licking the wound gently. The silverback took one last look at the baby he had saved, at the mother's eyes, now calm but wary, and then stepped backward into the mist as he disappeared into the forest. The last rays of light broke through the clouds, touching the wet leaves and the muddy pit that was now just a scar in the earth. Kibbo gave a weak cry, answered softly by his mother's low hum. The jungle, after so much chaos, began to breathe again, and somewhere among the dripping vines, the great silverback paused once more, listening, not for danger, but for life. He had done something no gorilla was taught to do, not for his own kind, but for another. The rain kept falling, washing the blood from the soil, blurring the footprints of the men who had fled by the time the storm passed. There was only silence, and in that silence, something sacred. The baby lay still. The jungle held its breath. A mother's shadow covered her child. Chapter 3. The heart of the forest. Rainwater still dripped from every leaf, falling in soft silver threads that caught the morning light. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world washed clean but scarred, a forest breathing again after a night of chaos. Mist hovered low over the ground, curling between tree trunks and roots, blurring the shapes of everything it touched. The air smelled of wet earth and crushed grass, mixed faintly with the iron scent of blood that the rain had not yet erased. In a small clearing surrounded by towering trees, two shapes lay close together, a mother and her calf. Kibbo's tiny chest rose and fell unevenly, each breath a small victory. His body was streaked with mud and vines, his legs wrapped in dried blood where the spikes had torn his skin. But he was alive. His mother stood over him like a living wall, her sides heaving from exhaustion. She had barely slept through the night, watching his every breath, her horn angled outward in case danger returned. Just a few steps away, Bantu sat quietly in the shadows. His black fur was matted with dirt, his massive arms resting on his knees. He was tired, more than tired, but he couldn't leave yet. The storm might have passed, but his instincts told him the danger was not truly gone until the forest itself said so. He listened to the wind, to the faint call of birds returning, to the quiet murmur of water dripping through the leaves. The pit that had nearly taken Kibbo's life was no longer visible. The rain had collapsed its walls, washing mud and branches into it, until the hole became part of the ground again. Nature had begun its quiet work of healing, of erasing what humans had done. The mother rhino turned slowly, her gaze falling on the silverback. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Bantu's dark eyes met hers. In that look, there was no fear, no aggression, only a silent understanding. The forest had taught both of them the same lesson. Survival was not about dominance, but balance. Kibbo stirred. His small body shivered as he tried to stand. His mother bent low, pressing her snout to his side, urging him gently. It took all his strength, but slowly, shakily, he rose. His legs trembled under his weight, his breathing ragged. Yet when he found his footing, his mother made a sound, a soft, rumbling purr that came from deep within her chest. It was the sound of relief, of a bond restored. Bantu watched, his head tilting slightly. In his chest, he felt something he couldn't name, something both heavy and warm. He had lost young of his own before. He remembered their cries, the helplessness of watching life slip away. Maybe that was why he had come when he heard the baby scream. Or maybe it was something simpler, the ancient pull of empathy that connects every living being when the wild turns cruel. The light grew brighter. Shafts of sun pierced through the dripping canopy, painting the clearing in gold. Steam rose from the wet ground. The jungle came alive again. Insects buzzed. Frogs called from the puddles, and somewhere in the distance, a hornbill's wings beat through the mist. The mother rhino took a step toward Bantu. Her movements were slow, cautious, but there was no hostility in them. Kibbo wobbled beside her, pressing against her leg for balance. Bantu stayed still, lowering his gaze slightly, showing no threat. When she stopped in front of him, the air between them was thick with something that didn't need words. Gratitude, perhaps, or respect. Then, with the gentlest motion, she extended her massive head and brushed her horn against his arm. The touch was light, almost hesitant. Bantu blinked. He didn't flinch or back away. He simply let it happen, his chest rising with a slow breath. It lasted only a second, but it was enough. A gesture that bridged an ancient divide. One creature of the grasslands and one of the forest, bound for a moment by the shared truth that compassion, too, is wild. Kibbo let out a weak squeal, and his mother turned back to him. Her attention was absolute again, but the space between her and the gorilla no longer felt like a wall. It felt like understanding. Bantu rose, stretching his long arms and glancing toward the deeper forest. His troop would be waiting, his family restless. He had done what instinct told him to do. It was time to return to his world. He gave one last look at the pair, the calf now lying close to his mother's side, both framed by a halo of soft morning mist. Then, without sound, he turned and walked away. His steps were slow and deliberate, each one sinking into the wet earth. The camera of this unseen world followed him, his broad back moving between shafts of light, the rhythm of his stride steady and strong that he didn't look back. The forest closed behind him, vines swaying gently where he had passed. For a moment, the clearing was still. Then, a low rumble rolled through the jungle. Not thunder this time, but the distant call of another gorilla, deep and comforting. Bantu's reply came faintly in the distance, a short grunt carried by the wind that it was as if the jungle itself was acknowledging what had happened. And that life, despite everything, goes on. The mother rhino lifted her head toward the sound, ears flicking. She didn't understand the meaning, but she understood the tone. It wasn't a predator's call. It was a farewell. The sun had fully risen now, burning away the mist. Steam rose from the wet ground, and tiny beams of light caught the edges of every drop still clinging to the leaves. Kibbo shifted, curling against his mother's belly. His eyes closed, finally at peace. High above, a group of hornbills soared across the open sky, their wings glinting silver. The forest breathed again, the chaos, the fear, the pain of the night slowly dissolving into memory as the scene widened. The sounds of the jungle filled the air once more, frogs croaking, birds calling, insects buzzing in a steady rhythm. Life returning to what it had always been. The narrator's voice, if this were a film, would fade in softly over the image of Bantu's silhouette disappearing into the deep green. In the jungle, mercy doesn't belong to one species. Sometimes, it's the wild itself that teaches us how to be human. The camera would rise, drifting above the canopy where mist rolled like waves over the endless green. The scars left by the pit were now hidden beneath mud and leaves. The earth was healing, as it always does. Below, the mother rhino and her calf stood close together, their shapes growing smaller as the forest swallowed them. And somewhere beyond the ridge, a silverback moved through the trees, his dark shape merging with the shadows, a silent guardian who had returned to his world, leaving behind a story only the forest would remember. The wind moved through the trees like a sigh. The baby lay still. The jungle held its breath. A mother's shadow covered her child. Then the forest exhaled, and the heart of the wild beat on.